My name is Matt Boyd. I'm from the PSIA Alpine team, presenting over here with my friend.
Hey, I'm Chris Rogers. I'm with the AASI snowboard team.
We're going to talk about our teaching fundamentals. And it's important to understand that our teaching fundamentals are just one part of our system. How many of you were just in the same room for the people fundamentals presentation? There's a little bit of overlap in here, so bear with us for the folks in the back that did not have their hands up. The reason there's overlap is because the people skills are one part. The technical skills are one part. The teaching fundamentals are one part. It's important that you understand that it's an entire system to develop both a lesson and to develop an instructor. We started many years ago and asked this question: what makes a great instructor? I mentioned in my clinic today, who was in the on snow with me? Hey, I love you guys. I asked the question, and I also noticed that from Great Britain, they asked that question in their presentation. Many people asked that question in their presentation, on hill or indoors. That was our answer. That was our answer. We feel that a great instructor, a truly great instructor, is skilled in three primary areas. They've got to be good skiers or riders. They have to be, if they're going to be a great instructor. They've got to have great technical knowledge. They've got to be able to do movement analysis. Those are technical skills in that top red triangle. They have to be great people. How many of you think that might be the most important of the skills? Hands go up. Our answer to that is, I don't know that there is one that's more important than the other. But you gotta have them. You have to have great people skills. You need to be able to connect with people on a personal level, both on the mountain, in the bar, in the locker room. Those skills are crucial to being a great instructor. And great instructors also have tremendous teaching skills. That's the ability to convey learning, to facilitate learning with your student. That's what's important. You can teach all day long, but if no learning's going on, you're not that great a teacher. Okay? And it's important to understand that we're so skilled in these three areas that the instructor can tweak their decisions and their behaviors in the lesson environment based on what the student presents. If you've got a young child, do you want to load them with technical information? No. Some instructors don't get that. A quick video on the Learning Connection model.
My first impression of the Learning Connection model was it really captured the skills that a good instructor needs to be able to present a good lesson.
The team asked a question: what is it that instructors really need to be able to do? They need people skills, they need understanding and knowledge and teaching skills, and they need to know what they're talking about.
The visual image that it presents really pulls together our student-centered approach to teaching with the student in the center, the instructor's behavior is shown by the rings around, and then inside the triangle, technical skills, teaching skills, people skills.
That three-pronged set of skills, that fits what a snow sports instructor has to be able to do.
You think about who's the best instructor you know, and who's somebody that has an amazing time with their students every time. They might not be the level 3 out there. They may be a level 1 that is just really passionate about getting to know people. And so it really gives us a broader scale of what makes great teaching.
It's real strong and really awesome because we have a ton of resources already created, and it's just putting them in the right spot to lead somebody in the right direction.
I think what's critical in ski instructors, we have personality. I can be teaching the 5 fundamentals, but I can actually have a look and a feel that's very much myself.
You don't learn to ski and ride by just understanding it. You learn to ski and ride by doing it.
The Learning Connection model is the framework for the new core concepts manual that's coming out, which there has been a lot of work put into making sure that this manual really captures the behaviors of the instructor that are reflected in that model.
This manual really goes into how to create experiences that help people learn rather than how to teach.
It does have the potential to inform instructors and trainers and examiners about their actions. We all have our dominances and our strengths. Maybe you're a highly technical educator, maybe someone is a wonderful people person, but is there an area that you would identify as the biggest opportunity for growth within the connection model?
We were able to have some different tiers or levels of information so that instructors start off with basic information, and then as they have more experience on the hill and actually teaching, then the next time they go through the manual, they can pull in some more information and say, wow, I haven't really thought of that.
I saw some good examples of application of the model by our team during the Interski. In one day, I watched the team offer clinics to some of the best educators in the world, and then later in the day, they participated in the Interski ski school, where the team members really had to rely more on personal skills and being able to engage and relate to the children.
You can have a multitude of different levels out there working around the mountain. You can personalize the lesson plan, you customize it, how you read the mountain, what lines you ski.
I think about a woman that I met last year, tons of anxiety, and the experience that she had with her instructor led her to this year, she's a new hire instructor at another resort.
That's why we developed this learning connection. It is so important about how you interact with the student. You can have all the technical skills in the world, but if you don't know how to present them and get your point across, it means nothing. It's building that relationship so that they are open to learning.
The truth is, I think most of our membership are pretty darn good instructors, and yet making that leap from good to great requires us to look at ourselves in all of the proficiencies and all the skill sets from the learning connection model. So we're able to build our skill set up and really become better.
That learning connection, when we connect with the student on a personal basis, they learn something. When we can make that happen, that meets what we have as a theme here at Interski. That is what grows the future of our sport. That is the future of snow sports. Getting that connection. I'm going to hand it over to my buddy Chris.
Hey, so for the last couple of years, we've had 2 subgroups working on this. And of those 3 triangles, really focusing on the teaching skills and the people skills section of that. So hopefully you guys were all able to either get out with the people skills group in the morning on snow or this last section. Matt and I are really focusing in this presentation on the teaching skills piece, but it's really important to note that there's a lot of overlap. The reason that we separated them was not to say, right now I'm using my people skills and right now I'm going to use my teaching skills. We recognize that they're all always happening at the same time. You're using your people skills to make a connection with the guest so that you can provide a better learning environment for that guest. So our intent in drawing them apart is not to say you're only doing one of them at a time. It's to create a framework to evaluate and develop our instructors. So I think that's a really key point to start from with this. Within this, what we say is the instructor to student connection, that's really our people skills. So when we started working on this, our group working on teaching skills and our group working on people skills, we had a pretty big list of things that we said a good instructor does that fit in either the teaching or people skills section. And so then we started asking on those, which of those connect the instructor to the student, and which of those connect the student and the teacher to the learning environment. And that's what we really say creates the side that we call teaching skills, is when it's connecting the student and the teacher to the learning environment versus connecting the student and the teacher to each other. And this goes beyond just building rapport, but that's a really good way to look at a basic level of people skills. Your student walks up to you at the beginning of the day, you pop your goggles up, you start to introduce yourself to them. We're relying on the people skills side of our job. But at the same time, you're probably making some observations about them, how they walk with their equipment, for example, that's relying on your technical skills. And you're probably already starting to, based on what you're seeing with them, make some thoughts about what you're going to do in your lesson. And that's relying on your teaching skills. So again, they're all happening at the same time, but we want to draw them apart so that we can create some framework for developing our instructors better. As we started looking at that and pulling apart what are people skills and what are teaching skills, we wanted to look at what are some of the common themes that fall under people skills. And that really came down to empathy, communication, and emotional intelligence. Those are a few examples of the kinds of things that fall into the people skills side. So as we start looking at those fundamentals, is this a people skill, is this a teaching skill? people skills really fall in that side of the category, right? The person-to-person interaction, the connection with your guest. Teaching skills are things like terrain, the activities that you're actually going to use as in your lesson. How are you going to teach them? And the pacing of that lesson, right? Talk versus teach, time to practice, time to free ski, free ride, and work on their own abilities.
I'm not good with this thing. So that said, we asked the question, what makes a great instructor? And we found those 3 primary areas. We then went a little bit deeper. We said, all right, what makes a great teacher? What makes a great person? What makes a great skier? We asked those questions to ourselves, and actually we asked that question also in Ushuaia. Those are the questions that we asked, and from that, we developed our fundamentals. I know there's a lot of letters on that page. Don't worry. We're here primarily to focus on our teaching skills, but it's important to see this slide. Very important to see this slide. You see, we've got our alpine skiing fundamentals. Who went to our technical session today? Talked about our 5 alpine skiing fundamentals. Snowboarding has their fundamentals for how they perform their sport. Cross country, telemark, adaptive have their fundamentals for how they perform their sport. From there, down and over all of those things, understand and apply technical concepts, all the way over to recognize and influence the behaviors and motivations and emotions of others. People skills are universally accepted across all of our disciplines, from alpine to snowboard to cross country. So it's just how we perform our sport on snow. That's the only one that we own individual is alpine. The rest are all shared across all disciplines because they are fundamental. Let's dive in a little bit tighter to these teaching skills. There was a lot of words on there. To break them down just a little bit easier, if you look at our teaching fundamentals in 2 ways. Some of those teaching fundamentals are designed to facilitate learning, right? That's an important thing to do as a coach. As Chris said, other ones are designed to connect the student and to keep the student connected to the learning process. If we focus on just facilitating learning, 3 of them help that. We create an environment that promotes exploration, experimentation, and play towards a desired outcome. Who was in the clinic? Did we do that? I sure hope so. We facilitate the learner's ability to recognize and reflect and assess upon their experiences and sensations. We reinforce effort in learning so that they know when they've learned something. Because sometimes, quite frankly, they don't know. It's up to us to help them tell them. We adapt the learning environment to accommodate the changing needs of the learner. How many of you learned how to walk? I should be seeing some hands in the air. Right? How many of you have parents that helped you learn how to walk? How many of you have children? How many of your children can walk? How many of you taught your children how to walk? Yeah. Did you really teach your child how to walk? Did you help? How do we help our children learn how to walk? We hold their hands. We adapt the environment, right? We hold their hands so that we can walk. How else? Mommy calls, daddy holds, and let go. Mommy calls, daddy holds, let go. Would you let your child learn how to walk up here on this stage? Why not? Well, might fall. Right? But we got involved in that process and we helped them learn how to walk. They experienced it. They did it. They explored. They experimented. They played towards the outcome of learning how to walk. Right? We facilitated their job. We clapped and got excited, and some parents even cry when they take that first step because they're so happy about it. That's reinforcing learning and effort. That's how we learn. That's how we as teachers facilitate learning. Watch this video and keep those 3 things in mind.
Very easy. The right pedal goes on the right side. And where you going? Look at that horizon. Off you go. Wow! Look at you go. I want you to just pedal. Off you go. Let go of your brakes. Off you go. 1, 2, 3. Go. Pedal. You're gonna pedal. That's it. And stop. Brakes. Look where you're going. It's all clear. 1, 2, 3. Go. Let go of your brakes. Off you go. And stop. Look how far you've ridden on your own. Wow. That's a long way. You see how many paces it is? That's great. And I'll hold the bike. Keep on the pedals. Look where you're going. After 3, you're going to let go of the brakes and you're going to pedal off. 1, 2, 3. Go, let go of the brakes. Off you go. Wow. She's off. Bye-bye. Send us a postcard. Bye now. Look where you're going.
Did you see the smile on that little girl? That's a connection. That's a connection. I can tell you that my youngest daughter, I taught her how to ride a bike. I did not do that. There was a time that she picked the bike up and her nostrils flared as she threw the bike. To this day, she still doesn't love it. Right? That girl is hooked. She's hooked on bike riding. Could you see those things in that video? Did he create an environment where she could explore and experiment and play towards the outcome of riding a bike? Huh. Pretty cool, isn't it? Doctor?
So then we've got the next 3, which are really focused on connecting the students to the learning process. So the first 3 there, based on facilitating the actual learning. Second half, connecting students to the learning process. So here we're looking at collaborate on short-term objectives and long-term goals, managing terrain selection, pacing, information, and activities, and managing emotional and physical risk within the learning environment. How many of you guys got to get up and watch us teaching in the Wrigley Park at some point this week? Little kiddos up there at the top of the hill. This is really big with those little kiddos. They want to learn to snowboard. We're going to collaborate with them on helping them achieve that goal in a safe way. We're going to manage the terrain selection, pacing, information, and activities. So we've got that whole park designed around creating a safe environment that lets us manage that terrain, manage where we're taking them, pace based on how they're performing. We can choose where we're taking them based on how their movements are changing. And we're managing emotional and physical risk for them by creating a very safe environment. If you think to the video that we just watched, or to any time where you were teaching and you had a really, really good lesson, or when you learned something yourself recently, these 6 elements are probably present. We believe they are the fundamentals to good teaching skills, regardless if that's on snow, or on a bike, or in a gym classroom where you're learning to snowboard off snow. Create an environment that promotes exploration, experimentation, and play towards a desired outcome. That means we're working with them to establish those goals. They come and say, hey, I want to learn how to do a 360 today. You say, well, have you snowboarded before? And they say, no. All right, I know, I'm going to collaborate with them, so I know what their long-term goal is, and I'm going to help them set some short-term objectives to get there. Facilitate the learner's ability to recognize, reflect upon, and assess experiences and sensations. How many of you guys use your phone in a lesson to take video of your students and show it right back to them on the lift? Probably most of us, right? You're facilitating that opportunity for them to see themselves, recognize, reflect upon, and assess experiences and sensations. Manage terrain selection, pacing, information, activities. We've all had that lesson or that clinic that stays still too long and we start to check out. We've all had that lesson that maybe moves too fast and out-terrains our students. Reinforce effort in learning and adapt the learning environment to accommodate the changing needs of the learner. This is any good instructor. They see someone starting to achieve a task, you move it to some new terrain, step up the difficulty a little bit, or you see them struggling a little bit, you know you might need to back it off a little bit. It goes right hand in hand with that concept of new terrain for an old task or old terrain for a new task. And then manage emotional and physical risk within the learning environment. This hits on the basics of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Students need to feel safe in order for learning to occur, and that's not just physical safety. We also consider that to be emotional safety. They need to feel comfortable in the environment, and that's an important teaching skill, is the ability to create that environment. This is the new teaching cycle that we rolled out in our most recent manual as well. It's a little bit simplified from our previous 8-step one. And the thing we wanted to include this in the presentation tonight is just to highlight, if you're doing these 6 things, you should be achieving all 6 of those fundamentals pretty naturally just through that process. Welcome and introduction, you're meeting your guests, you're starting to establish that relationship, you're starting to build trust, you're starting to create a safe environment for them. And then we work through this cycle throughout the day, assessing the student, making those observations about them, figuring out what you're going to work on with them for that day, determining goals and planning experiences. That goes right back to setting short-term goals, long-term objectives. Creating experiences for learning. This is developing your tasks for the day, starting to lay out what exercises they're going to do that you think are going to affect their skills. Moving into guiding practice, so important, right? Making sure they have time to actually put that into practice and work on it, get some mileage. And then right back into assessing the students, right? As they're writing, you're making those assessments so that you can adjust the learning based on what you're seeing. Full loop, over and over and over again, and then review and preview at the end of the day. Hope you come back for another lesson, right? Those are our 6 fundamentals. Again, this is something the whole team's been working on for the last couple of years, especially in a couple of subgroups. One focused on people, one focused on teaching. And I think we've got a couple minutes for questions. Matt, anything else you wanted to wrap up with?
No, I will say though that we are going to talk about the digital access that we're giving to all of you. We'll just put a slide up here in just a few minutes. We have a new teaching snow sports manual that you'll have access to that goes into ways to develop these people and teaching skills. It's easy to say that you can't develop people skills, but in this manual they do a great job of helping instructors develop their own people skills and teaching skills. So you'll have access to that. You'll also have access to this handout that was designed for Interski. So you'll have that. Any questions from the crowd? Yes?
I was wondering, if you work with the ski areas to promote environments that does exactly that exploration inside of those?
Absolutely. I mean, you saw, did anybody see the Wrigley Park at the top of the hill? Right? That's something that we promote through our organization and through BERT. Also, Joe Hessian, who gave the keynote lecture, Snow Operating, they design and implement terrain-based learning throughout the country, but we also encourage that type of stuff. In the United States, you can be an instructor before you're certified, which means that we need to provide the area operators with value for sending their instructors to come to us to get certified. If if they go back, and somebody asked a question earlier about people skills and taking over as the employer, if our certified instructors don't have good people skills, where's the value in our certification? Right? So we are actively encouraging resorts to work with this. This is fairly new. We unveiled just the model in Ushuaia, but we've added these fundamentals since. And again, it will become a part of our exam process where we score all three of those areas. Did I answer your question?
Could you elaborate a little bit on managing emotional risk?
Yeah, that's a great one. I talked about it a little bit that one today, excuse me, in my group. My children cannot get enough risk. They love risk. Roller coasters. Who likes a roller coaster? Who does not like a roller coaster? Yeah, yeah. Roller coasters, just the element, my wife's riding her bicycle down a hill. We do a lot of cycling. She is on the brakes going down a hill. Her tolerance for risk is not high, emotionally, right? I know, you know, that if my wife let go of the brakes and she coasted down that hill and gained speed, she's gonna be fine. The physical risk, you're fine, right? You tell her that. She does not like going fast down hills. That's emotional risk. Physical risk is the stuff that's obvious. It's too cold, it's crowded, be careful of skiers coming at you. That's the physical risk. But the emotional risk side, providing enough challenge, that's one that we talk about connecting to the learning environment, the learning process. If you out-challenge my wife, do you think she's going to learn anything from you? No, she's done with the learning process. She still might love you as a person, but she's done learning. If you under-challenge my children, same situation happens, right? So we need to manage that emotional risk based on what we get back from the student. And you see it. You know when they're scared or when they want more.
I think the other key there, though, too, Matt, is physical risk can create emotional risk. So if you had a negative experience previously, that negative experience could trigger a very emotional response to trying to do that again. And that's one of the other reasons we thought that was important to include.
Just connecting to that, when you teach instructors, when you educate, how would you get the emotional component across? Indoors, or do you have a special program?
In development. That's stuff that we're working on now is how do we get this further out to the instructor. Great question. That's stuff that we are working on. We're working on how we convey this now that we have this in place, how do we get this information out to the instructor? So, that's a good question.
How long does it take to perform an everyone to get all the information on the show?
Right. So, we are now writing our assessment criteria. So, how a level 1 instructor needs to interact with these fundamentals in a novice zone, a beginner zone, right? Where I would expect a level 3 in creating an environment, right? I would expect a level 3 to be very creative in how they create that environment, to mold the environment around the terrain, around the student, around the weather, to really be creative there. Where I would expect a level 1 to be more copying. They copy what they've seen others to do. So for a level 1, how long does it take? Who knows? It could be instantly. A great teacher, some teachers are born.
I think I would expect that most of your associations in some way or another are evaluating people skills. They're probably in many places tied in with the actual teaching process. But we all have met those instructors that are great teachers but not really good people, or they have good people skills but maybe aren't as good of teachers, but they're able to really do a good job selling private request lessons. But you know there's not a lot of technical information being conveyed, right? Our teaching standards, for the most part, have been like that before, where people skills and teaching skills were evaluated together, and we didn't really call them out as separate things. And as part of pulling these apart as fundamentals, our next step is to start building those assessment criteria and looking at kind of what we're trying to really evaluate under the teaching skills side and under the people skills side. And as we do that, we'll have a better answer to how we're going to evaluate the level 1, level 2, and level 3.
I know that you guys have a great organization with team experience. So would you say that the organization creates the environment for level 1, so he goes there and not elsewhere, and then get people out of it? How does it work? Because it takes time to achieve the teaching skills and the people skills and the technical skills. So the level 1, if you expect that on a level 3 on a full short, to manage the 3,
Right.
and you give to the level 1 should go already.
Sure. So this is a great question. As we hire new instructors, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, and sometimes we hire them and then put them right to work on Christmas week. That happens, right? So we design an introduction to ski or snowboard program, right, that reflects those fundamentals. All they're doing is reciting what you told them to recite, right? That happens. It's a shame, but that does happen. Right? It would be great to hire great teachers and only use great teachers that have got tons of experience. But for a newer instructor, you can give them concrete things to do that will lead them through this. And that's what we expect at that level 1 exam, is them just doing those concrete steps, where a level 3 should be able to manipulate those steps and pick and choose and play and do other things and create on their own. Does that answer the question?
Yes, because we're all working on finding, and what I say is we need a structure for new instructors, and as you learn how to manage the structure, you can deep within it what is good for the student now, but the new instructor will just use the structure to feel the structure safe.
Yes. Great question back. Yes.
I have a question. How do you fit the social aspects within your triangle? I give you example, say fairness. You know that if you're not fair with the students, if the exchange is not fair, if you have some prejudice against one of the group, you destroy the atmosphere, the atmosphere goes down, and the teaching process is better attacked. But do you fit it here? I don't.
So that fits here in the people skills. That would fit in the people skills, because those are things that if you did those outside of the learning environment, right, in a bar, if you were prejudiced towards one person over the other, right, if you were not nice or you preferred one person over the other, in your house with your own children, those are things that would affect that relationship. So we ask in here that you become aware of your own actions and how you tend to react and what your own tendencies are. From a people skills side, you've all seen people that are awkward to speak with, right? You have a conversation with them and it's very awkward. And you're always trying to get away from that conversation. Sometimes you have a signal as a friend that says, I need help over here, right? So those folks need help here that will certainly help their teaching skills, but they need help in the people end of things. Does that answer your question?
I wouldn't say so. I don't see it. People skills are obviously critically important, but being fair to the people is more like creating an environment. If you are fair to the people, if you let them go in the proper direction, if there's never one person is always lost, that's the environment. Okay? But if you let, say, people, some of the people be at the back, always at the back, that's against the social, positive social environment.
I agree.
So I think we would probably tie that into developing relationships based on trust in the people skills. If we're creating a fair environment, we're going to create trust there, and we see that as falling under the people skills side of things. One of the models we've used there in the last couple of years is the SCARF model: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness, as a way to understand and develop how fairness fits into those, and that's kind of bridges people skills and teaching skills, but I would say fairness is really tied in there with trust.
Does that answer your question? Excellent. We have a few more questions, a few more minutes for questions, I think. Yeah, Dusty.
To speak to Mr. Gentleman's question, to speak to his question, that highlights why these things are not separate. It shows that the combination of managing, training, selection, pacing, information, activities, along with this piece, they have to live together because that's where the fairness will come in. That's when they'll be able to get those together. That's why in action they have to be together. In learning we can separate them.
Other questions? Yes?
Times I had problems with ladies that have been taught by their husbands. Husband gets nervous, curses, negative, and the wife keeps a very, very strong psychological lock against skiing. Now, overcoming such a mental block is something I most often fail to achieve. Do you have any special miracle secret?
Another instructor? I don't have a special miracle, but I can say we deal with fear a lot, particularly those of us that teach in bigger mountains, whether it's a dislike of the sport because you're frustrated or you're afraid, right? That is where these skills truly come into play, right? If we don't develop that relationship based on trust, you can trust me. I'm not going to do what your husband did, right? I recognize by your behaviors and emotions, I recognize that you're frustrated. I see that, and I'm going to do everything within my power to overpower that frustration. So I don't have a magic pill, but the things that you do to make that happen would likely fall under those people skills.
The solution might be to go from empathy to loving.
Absolutely.
Husband might not agree.
Absolutely.
Don't go too far, right?
Yeah. Depends on how big her husband is. Can we answer any other questions? Excellent. Hey, we cannot thank you enough for your participation in our workshops, for the encouragement in our synchro ski. We thank you for that. That's not something Americans are known for. That's wonderful. So thank you very much for being here, and thanks for a great Interski. Let's go get some beer.
If you need one more of these, we have some more to hand out.
Cheers. Thank you.